Top Game with your host, Sammy Castro. Episode 20, 2659, currently on the DCI staff, Master Gunnery Sergeant John Stancel, a.k.a. Rain Man. Admin note, Marines, get your hands on the biography of one of our own titled Call Sign Chaos, Learning to Lead. A #1 New York Times bestseller, our former Secretary of Defense, the Warrior Monk, along with Bing West, recount over 4 decades in the Marine Corps. Within this memoir, you'll find a wealth of knowledge gained through leadership experience in the course of his lifetime of service. I'm certain it's going to be a favorite of the course for many years to come. If you've already read it, pass it along to one of your brothers or sisters. If you're like me and have an unhealthy need to hold on to your books, then buy them their own copy. Disclaimer, the views and opinions expressed on Top Game are those of the producers and or the guests appearing on the program and do not reflect the views and opinions of the United States Marine Corps or the Department of Defense. Thanks for tuning in.
How did you get the idea to start this?
So it was really Kevin Simmons and John Scoggins.
Okay.
We took a road trip from San Angelo to San Antonio. We were at one of the, was it a TNR manual working group?
Was this 3 years ago?
No, it was about a year ago.
Okay.
Maybe. But I chewed on it for a while. And I'd been actually toying with the idea of a podcast over a variety of things. But I was going to go at it from an approach of just like a geek dad. You know, the shit that I do with my boys, you know, when I'm decompressing, downtime. Well, I bought, you know, the boys and I have built 3 gaming workstations in the house, and we'll all log in at the same time and just get after it. From Minecraft, it started with Minecraft, then it became like some turn-based strategy games, first-person shooters. We played some Dota, MOBAs. I don't know if you know what any of this stuff is. Multi-online battle arenas, multiplayer online battle arenas, things like that. And you know, my dad would play some games with me from time to time, but like when I had a Nintendo, but never really got into it. My boys and I, we geek out hard. And you know, that to the jiu-jitsu, the scouts, to, you know, just all of that stuff. I had like written down on a notepad some ideas for a podcast, but you know, I think one of the values of the format is that you can drill down into a niche area, and you know, outside of being a husband and a father, the one thing that I do more than anything else is I'm a Marine, right? And it's part of just being a professional, wanting to be good at your job. And that road trip from San Angelo to San Antonio, that gave me some insight, because I was a junior master sergeant at the time. It just, you know, picked up, you know, a few months prior, and what it was going to take to rise to the level of the expectations of my peer group, myself, the Marines around me, you know, because it is a game changer when you go from gunny to master sergeant. And I found that one of the most effective ways for me to kind of start to incorporate those subtle shifts and changes was through that verbal interaction with my peer group. You know, I'd been 8 years out of the fleet at that point in time. You know, because after I was at Goodfellow, well, after Camp Lejeune, I was at Goodfellow for a few years. Then I went to the Dominican Republic. I was assigned to DIA for a few years, and then went to NSA, and then got selected for Master Sergeant. And before I knew it, I was at 3 F Okinawa, and having to walk the walk. Without being in my comfort zone at a Radman. Right?
Okay.
And you know, a lot of my time in the formative stage, as I refer to it, in the SIGINT community was spent as a team leader, and then later as a trainer of team leaders at SOTG, and then later Staff and CRC Ops Chief of a MUDET, and then they sent me out to Goodfellow. But I thought that if I could capture those human interactions between peers, that there might be something there in sort of documenting those lessons learned, how we find that balance. I've been fortunate that despite my faults and I guess shortcomings, Elizabeth has stayed by my side through it all. And we have two beautiful boys that I haven't fucked up yet. At least I don't think so. Liz was, because I wasn't there for their open house, and Liz told me that when she was interacting with one of Enrique's teachers, he my oldest, the 16-year-old, he's a junior this year in high school, and the teacher made a comment, something to the effect of that it's notable that Enrique pursues excellence, and there's very few people who he feels challenged or threatened by, and so that teacher is going to have to work extra hard in order to push him. And he told the teacher, and he told Liz separately, that it's because Dad pushes me. And for me, it brought tears in my eyes, because yes, I have to push him. I have to be hard on him. I have to be firm with him. But he's my baby, and the goal is, for me, has always been to ensure that he's going to be successful when I'm no longer here. That the lessons will continue when I'm no longer around to give them. That he could, in a moment of uncertainty, think, what would Dad tell me right now? And my voice resonate with him. And I think I'm there, right? But I was talking to Mahoney last night, and one of the concepts that he brought up, he's a philosopher. I don't know if you know him, but he's into reading the Stoics and the classics. One of the things he brought up was this imposter dilemma, or the theory of the imposter. And succinctly, it's that we all feel like we've been faking it because we've seen, our own missteps, and it's almost as if each of us individually feel like we don't deserve to be where we're at. Do you feel that way?
Sometimes. So a friend of mine that studies a lot of philosophy, and I appreciate certain philosophers. Others I don't appreciate as much.
Right. They can't get lost in their own world. You can put the headphones on.
No, sure. Yeah. Hey, what do I call you throughout this?
Sammy.
Got it.
You can pull that closer to you.
Yeah, I can do that. I have the ability.
Yeah. Yeah, you call me Sammy, man.
All right.
So I used to be Little Sam, or Little Sammy, growing up, and then in order to kind of shake that off, I wanted to be my own Sammy, or Samuel. For a long time I went by Samuel, but as I gotten older, now I just go by Sammy. So,
well,
especially to my friends.
I did call you.
I consider you a friend.
I appreciate that. The same is also true. I was talking to Sam Carter, and I said I'm going to meet with the other Sam, and he thought I was, for some reason he was confusing me, and all of a sudden he's like, "Your daughter's name's not Samantha?" I'm like, no, man, I'm meeting with Castro, and he's like, "That's right. It's been a long week for all of us," and
yeah.
I think everyone is kind of just ready to relax and unwind and unload some of the mental burden that we've been under for the last week.
So talk to me. How do you think, well, first off, you do feel like you've not necessarily earned your way to the position that you're at?
It's a difficult question to answer. I think and it's not something that's a simple yes or no answer. Obviously, the Marine Corps promotes the people that the Marine Corps feels are most suited to fill those positions. And it's one of those things where I'm constantly given reassurance that you're the right guy for this job, and we did a good job in selecting you, which helps ease some of the uncertainty. But at the same point in time, I look around and I see all these other guys, these guys that I came up with, and you follow around, you look at them on lineal lists, you see that they're going to other meetings, boards, briefs, and you just think of them as being these giants, and you hear the work that they've done, and you're like, I don't know that anything that I've done compares to that. And so you start having doubting and questioning yourself. But I think one of those things is just don't buy your own brand. Don't let all the smoke that's being blown at you make you think that you are so big that you're irreplaceable or anything else. And just,
none of us are.
Just constantly look at it from the perspective of you're going to be replaced, you're going to go away, and you want to build something that's going to sustain, and you want your legacy to be the conversations that you've had and the lessons that other people have been able to pick up from you, being able to pass on little bits and pieces. And some of the lessons that you have may not suit everyone, but for other people, they'll resonate really well. And I think the diversity of the people we have in the community is helping shape the future for us.
So let's talk about the summit. What do you think that we got out of this week's worth of effort?
I think we have a way ahead that the community needs to try and some long-term, some shorter goals and some longer-term goals that we can start looking at, that we collectively as a community have agreed are areas that we need to work on, and we're not where we need to be, and we're not satisfied with where we're at, and I think that I take that as a positive thing, because we're not just sitting back and resting on our laurels, and we're looking at how do we make this better moving forward. But I think we got a number of things that a lot of people in that room said, I don't know how to do this. And we'll figure it out together as a group.
Well, do you think there was anybody that should have been there this week that wasn't? I think it was I was frustrated by not frustrated, but kind of disheartened by the fact that, weather took over and we had to, we lost some of the guys from Lejeune.
Yeah, absolutely. When we started, and every day it was like watching a horror movie. That who are the casualties going to be when we left the room to go out and search for tomorrow, coming back and seeing fewer and fewer people. The one group that I would have liked to have seen, just because I spent time there and I realized how large a percentage of the community it is I would have loved to have seen somebody come down that's on the cyber mission forces, because we have a ton of people that are there, and I think much like the rest of the 2600 community that's going through this modernization, that we now find ourselves in this, we're about to find ourselves in the new fiscal year where the modernization is fully in effect, but we're all sitting in the seats that we're going to be sitting in moving forward. There's a lot of uncertainty for the Marines that are part of the cyber mission forces, whether they want to stay part of the 2600 community or they want to become part of the cyberspace community. And I would have liked to have seen somebody from there come down. I would have loved to have seen all the Master Sergeants and Master Gunnery Sergeants be able to make it out. I know they were all invited, and it's hard to be able to take an entire week off to pause and put your life on hold, put things that you're working on, your unit on hold. But that's what I would have liked to have seen.
Part of my concern, and one of the reasons why I made it a point to really get there for the data summit, even though I'm not a 51, is because, for the first time in my career, I found myself surrounded by the 51s, the guys out on the division side, which is right across the parking lot from us, and then the ones that live in my space with me. And, I really started paying attention early on in my tour on Oki to some of the things that Sam was saying, but what I heard when he wasn't around was uncertainty, a little bit of trepidation. And I would even go so far as to say fear of the changes that were coming. And so I made it a point to kind of dig into that and address some of those concerns in order to ensure that the message that he was disseminating would get to where it needed to go, along with the support that was going to be needed, that was going to be required for them to be able to take it to its fruition, right? Because, as indomitable a spirit as Sam Carter is, at Headquarters Marine Corps, his reach only goes so far. Once that VTC shuts down, once the phone hangs up, once the email is deleted, they could take a different path. And I didn't want to see that. I bought in to the message because I'd seen the value in having, airmen that could code on demand. The value in seeing, in my time in San Antonio, the power of data analytics. And it just makes sense to me, right? I didn't necessarily have to hear the whole spiel. As soon as I heard, the main thrust, that was all I needed. But the truth is, there's been a lot of feet dragging in the modernization effort, as though many wish that it wasn't going to happen. And when we saw some of that this week, where there was a little bit of consternation over giving up some of our old roles, but there's never been an MOS like this before. Right? I mean,
no, there hasn't, and there certainly is a lot of fear and uncertainty and doubt. And as a community, we can't give into that FUD. What this modernization has done is this is putting the Marine Corps back in the lead for a lot of things. You look at what's taking place on a national level, and we are now better postured to deal with those things moving forward. The importance of data analytics and the importance of being able to code. Those are huge, important things. The discussion, when you hear things like whoever wins the artificial intelligence race is going to win the world, it's something where we need to be postured to achieve success in that. And you read through all the Marine Corps operating concepts for cyberspace operations and space operations and electromagnetic spectrum operations, and it all starts with that same problem statement about we're not man-trained or equipped to do this. And what the modernization has done is it's set us up for the first step towards achieving success in this, towards preparing to conduct battle or conflict in this space. And right now, I think you're seeing more fear and uncertainty and doubt in Marines because, unlike when you feel like you might be a fraud and you keep those kind of feelings private, this is kind of a shared feeling of we're being frauds.
Collective uncertainty.
Collective uncertainty, because it's one of those things where guys will say, I don't know how to do that yet. And the Marine Corps institutionally frequently has put people in positions where they say, this is your job. And they're like, we're going to train you how to do it later. And now you have an entire community that this is now our job. And we haven't trained to do it. And so I think that amps up that uncertainty. And I think with time and as people start getting trained in this, that a lot of that fear and uncertainty will subside. And the young guys that haven't been trained how to do anything yet, they're all about it because they say that's a space that I want to be working in. But for guys that have already been working in a space for a long time, and they say I'm being asked to do something that I haven't been trained to do, I've had that happen to me before, and I didn't like how it worked out. And I think that's why you see some fear and uncertainty right now. But I think it's where we need to be postured. Right now, we are making this community more relevant to the Marine Corps and to the entire U.S. government than we've been in a long time. We are rapidly stepping up our game to meet the future needs of conflict that we as a nation are going to be engaged in the future.
So, General Allen wrote an article on the concept of hyperwar. It's dated like January of this year. But in there, he talks about AI fueled machine wage conflict, but he also states on the other side of his mouth that this isn't a new term. In World War II, the same term was implied to global nature in many concurrent theaters of war. In today's context, however, hyperwar may very well be applied globally, but the element of pan-war is not its singular defining characteristic. Instead, what makes this new form of warfare unique is the unparalleled speed enabled by automated decision-making and the concurrency of action that will become possible by leveraging artificial intelligence and machine cognition. But one of the things that I took away from this week was the fact that the human will never be out of the equation. That seems to be a fundamental component of our way ahead in all this. But I mean, you tell me, John. Do you think we'll ever get to a point where that decision may be out of our hands, that we're going to have to rely on the algorithm?
So I don't know if we're ever going to be in a position for that. And obviously none of us can forecast the future or see the future. People try and forecast it all the time and guess what's coming. I think for a lot of business mission areas, things like trying to figure out leave, travel, general day-to-day functions, I think businesses are already turning over those decisions to machines, to algorithms, to artificial intelligence, to whatever you want to call it. They're taking that decision out of a human's hands and letting the machines crunch numbers and say, yep, that's good, or no, that's not. And I think we're faced with the RoboCop reboot for a lot of those other keeping humans in the loop. We don't want machines making decisions that may take lives or impact lives. Where is that going to go? I don't know if we culturally, socially are going to hit a point where we're going to say we're all right with machines making those decisions for us. I think they're certainly going to be capable of doing it. The question is what we're going to, what society's going to want and what the Marine Corps is going to want. And I don't have those answers. I think
what's your hunch?
I think we're going to keep a human in the loop for as long as possible. Much like the fear and uncertainty and doubt about change, I think taking a human out of the decision process is going to be one of the last things that anyone is going to be comfortable with. And I think there's going to be massive resistance to that for any decision, no matter how large or small it is. I think people like knowing that at the end of the day, there's a human making a decision. They get presented additional information, and the quantity of the information is greater, and it's been refined better than it ever has before, to where they have the best available information to make a decision. But they want a human to make that decision. I think most people feel very comfortable with that because that's all we've known for our entire lives, and we've grown up with the looming threat of Skynet and every other sci-fi movie where from HAL as a transposition of IBM one letter over in the alphabet. We've been fearful of machines socially for a long time for what they can do. And I think we're going to resist turning over decisions to machines for a long time.
So I know you're a little bit, well, I wouldn't say a little bit, you're a lot averse to technology. I was listening to you kind of go off one of your rants, which you're famous for, about not wanting to post everything up on social media and all of that. So why are we recording now?
So we're recording now, and you should see the setup that Sammy's got here. I feel like I've never been in a recording studio. I've seen outside of one, but I feel like I'm in a recording studio right now. But we're talking now. A lot of Marines have over the last few years, your perspective on who you are in the institution changes. I mean, a lot of Marines that I've served with have heard me say things like, I never figured I'd make a career of this. I came in and figured I'd do a tour, get out and be the slightly cool older guy in college that could buy my own booze. And obviously I've stuck around a lot longer than that. And as I've seen more and more of my peers that I came in with leave, I started to think about what am I leaving behind? And I served with a lot of young Marines at Fort Meade, and a lot of them said, "Thanks for taking the time for that." And a lot of them asked me, "Why are you not on the podcast series yet?" And I said, "What podcast series?" And I said, "You gotta do a podcast episode." And it's one of those things. I love Marines. They're my family, and it's been a huge part of my family that's kept me sane and kept me wanting to do this. And Marines said, "We'd really like for you to do a podcast." And it's like, it costs me nothing to do it, but my time, and the Marine Corps they've got carte blanche on my time already. and so if it's the type of thing that Marines are going to enjoy, and it's not hurting anyone, I will 100% do anything to try and help another Marine out. And so a Marine says, "I'd love to hear you do this." I'm happy to do that. Let me do something for you. Hopefully it's worth their time to listen to it.
So have you listened to any episodes?
I haven't.
So I think the first episode was Chris Sonneman, another 51, but not really. Kind of master of quite a few disciplines, but has avoided going to the 6 like no one else could. Second episode was Jerry Cross, our new occupational specialist. And then we did Kevin Simmons. And that was probably the hardest for me. I didn't know Kevin very well. We knew each other at DLI in a cursory fashion. He was a fleet returnee, I think, going through Korean, if I'm not mistaken. But and we even I hosted his entire platoon over to the house for a pig picking. But we didn't really get to know each other until I checked in at 3MEF, and him being in the ops section, I would call and talk to him on a regular basis. And, I got to hear some of the heartfelt sentiments behind his decision to retire. And so when we recorded, it was actually post-retirement. So he comes in, looking like this nasty but well-kept civilian contractor, right, or profiteer. But he cut to the heart of what it was that kept him engaged for as long as he was in, but why he was able to walk away from it. And now that I'm at nearing my 19-year mark, it's got me thinking, right? And every so often you've got to reapply the calculus to how much longer do I have? For me, after doing that, I went ahead and extended for 4 more years, or re-enlisted rather, but with the intent of staying for a 4th year on Okinawa. But what about John Stancel? What goes into your calculus, and how have you, settled on your path, and how much longer you plan to be on active duty?
So it's a question that we all get asked an awful lot. As I look down the road and look into the future, I think it's one of those things where I've often said I'm gonna keep doing this as long as it's fun and as long as I'm physically able to do it. And so I don't really know how long that'll be. There have been times that have been a struggle, and you come home some days and say, I don't know why I'm doing this anymore. And then I'd come in the next day and I'd see other Marines and I'd see people. And usually it's the simplest things that cause Marines at least that caused me to want to stick around. And I think it's universally true for a lot of Marines. It's, hey, thanks for what you did yesterday. Thanks for this. And I don't know why it's so difficult sometimes to just say thank you. It costs us nothing, but it makes a world of difference to the other Marines. But I'm excited about the tour that I'm on currently. It was exciting to be able to come and check in to a new unit. And it was a bittersweet moment because you're saying goodbye to guys that you served with I was at my last tour for 5.5 years. And I miss the Marines there dearly. And I'm still in touch with them. I'm still in the same geographical area. And my answer remains the same. I'll keep doing this as long as it's fun, as long as I'm physically able to do this. And the future will tell. So far, my health has been good, and I haven't had any major dings to contend with that are pushing me out. And within the last 3 months, though, I have had to buy a new blues blouse and a new alpha coat. So we'll see how well the Food for Freedom and the weight program lets me stick around. But I think I got a few more years in me.
You seem to be fair. I wouldn't worry too much about that. I had a conversation with Nate, and for the life of me, I can't think of Nate's last name.
Roman.
Roman, and who was the other one? I think it was Ben Rude. It may have been Adam Ben Rude, but I still wear the same blues blouse that I graduated from boot camp in. Same alpha blouse. I've not had to buy new ones. But yeah, I mean, I'm at any point in time, I expect that to change. But kind of switching gears a little bit, let's dial it back some. Where are you from originally?
So I always say Chicago. It's the easiest answer to say that people immediately recognize. But I spent most of my life growing up in Downers Grove, which is a small suburb on the western side of Chicago, about 18 miles outside of the Loop. And it's just it's a really nice, quiet suburb. It's governed as a village. And then you plop the village of Downers Grove with a population of 65,000 into Wyoming, and it immediately becomes the most populous city. Actually, I don't know I think Cheyenne has more than 65,000, but that's where I'm from.
So what was high school like for Master Gun Stancel?
It was an interesting experience. I started high school, and I was 4'11" and less than 100 pounds. I don't 96, 98 pounds. I don't know. I was small when I started, and I was socially awkward. One of the major contributing factors. I was incredibly socially awkward. I mean, for those people that think of me as being socially awkward now, you have no idea. I couldn't speak in public. I wasn't a functioning member of society in high school. You take all the issues that I have and couple them with hormones and teenage awkwardness, and I was really just I was not in a good place socially, and I didn't know how to interact with people. But I got into cross country and track, and it was something that I enjoyed enough to at least keep doing it. It gave me something to do outside of school, but I'd intentionally pick my schedule where I just took classes where I knew 100% of the work was tests and quizzes because I was terrible about doing homework.
Right. Are you still the same way?
Now, homework and work remain the same. I've discovered that it's not uncommon to take phone calls any hour of the night, to have something pop up, and it's just all work. It's one of those things where you want to be able to respond. I don't want to be the guy that somebody calls me and I say, "Sorry, I'm in the middle of doing something else and I can't address your concerns right now." So right. It's really more of the same thing. Homework and work are the same thing. You take a pause, whether it's in the middle of the day or whether it's in the middle of the evening. You take a pause when you need to, and keep going, because this is certainly a marathon.
That it is. So, how did you find yourself on the Yellow Footprints?
So, carrying on with that whole socially awkward thing, I was like I spent most of high school socially awkward and dateless. And it's one of those things I was like, you know what would really help out my popularity with the ladies? Being a Marine. And I was like, yeah. And then, unfortunately, a marriage and a divorce later, I'm not sure that was the right approach.
How's that working for you, right?
But I found other things that I loved about the Corps, and other reasons that is like that the Marine Corps gives you a lot of things. It's given me almost everything that I have in my adult life. I'm fortunate enough that I still have a great relationship with my family, and they have not disowned me in spite of my enlisting in the Marine Corps, and they support me and are proud of me for that. And I couldn't have come from a better family, and I couldn't have come into a better family in the Marine Corps either. And I don't know if that answers your question about how I got in the yellow footprints, but at least it elicited a laugh.
You wanted the blues, right? You mentioned love of the Corps, and that was like twice in this conversation that you said that. What do you love about this gun club?
So I love the people. I mean, it's one of those things where we are surrounded by just amazing people, and not everyone is a super fit poster child, model looking person. Not everyone has
Sam Carter.
Poster boy he remains the poster boy for the Marine Corps. When I try to explain who he is to anyone, it's always he's the guy in the poster. He is literally the poster boy for the Marine Corps. And I know it upsets him, but he intentionally tries to get my goat with a lot of things as well, and usually succeeds.
So you take your wins when you can get them, right?
Yeah, exactly. But it's nothing. I have nothing but love for that man. But I think the thing that I really love about Marines is you look at a group of people that have collectively said, I want to give up something of myself for the greater good of the U.S. And they didn't say, I don't just want to give it up. Everyone in the armed forces wants to give up something. But everyone that joined the Marine Corps said, I want to try the hardest path to do that.
Right.
And it's one of those things where there's a certain mentality that you have to have for that. And I think there's a certain spirit. And it's one of those things, that's what really, to me, makes Marines great. That's why I really appreciate just every Marine. Because it was somebody that said, I'm going to do something, and I'm going to do it the hard way, and I'm going to do it for other people. And I'm fortunate that I get to serve with them.
So one of the interesting conversations that I had out in Okinawa not too long ago was when General Donahue came to visit, and we got to talking, and guys like Sam Carter and John Scoggins and others started coming up in conversation, and he just stopped mid-sentence, and he's like what a great group of professionals like that the 26 XXs have at the upper enlisted ranks. And to get a 3-star to kind of just like stop mid sentence and just and I don't think for a second that I was wowing him out of his socks with anything that I was saying, but I was engaged with him on some key points about the plan and the strategy for the employment of the EWSTs. And so we were kind of going back and forth on some things, and then I brought up John Scoggins and Sam Carter and a few others, and he just stopped mid. It's like he was blown away. And sitting there this week with all of the 51s, and then previously in other working groups with a lot of the 91s that we've got floating around, not necessarily floating around, but actively engaged in the future of the Ockfield and the modernization effort. I get that sense that we've got a lot of extremely bright, sharp, driven individuals, and the last thing you want to be, like you mentioned earlier, is the person that doesn't measure up to that. And I will say that one of the things that I like most about the podcast and why I've been able to do it is it allows me to capture in a voice print. The outstanding Americans that we have, not only in uniform, but at the upper ranks of our occupational field. And it allows for those junior Marines, like the ones that were walking up to you and saying, "Hey, Master Guns, you need to do an episode." And you talked about closeness to family. And I feel like, these types of events, like the Data Summit and some of the other working groups, you develop a tighter bond, a tighter relationship with that inner circle. And it's one of the reasons why I made it a point to bring Coker along. And he and I hadn't had a chance to really chop it up and kind of gauge what his takeaways were. But I can't wait to do that when we get back. But I mean, if I could have been a staff sergeant participating in some of these conversations and discussions, I don't think it would have been lost on me how important that is. But it kind of leads me to my point, though. I mean, he's one of mine. I want to make sure that he gets to where he needs to be as a young, 51, moving up in the ranks, future leader of the OC field, right?
Absolutely.
But at what point in time did you start to adopt that perspective in your career, and which individuals helped you along the way in order to achieve that?
So it's really hit me that needed to bring along other people and include them when I was at the Cyber Mission Forces. I was sitting there, and it wasn't the first time that the thought had occurred to me, but it was the first time that I was in a position where there were other Marines that I could bring along to events. I mean, my tour before that was at 2MEF, and as the G2 systems chief, you look at the G2 and you had a gunny system. I was at 2MEF. We had a gunny systems chief that I was filling, and I had one corporal, and I would bring him to things when I could, but it wasn't the type of thing where if I was going to be gone TAD, we could just leave the office vacated for a week-long trip. But when I got to the Cyber Mission Forces, I was like, I'm going to be gone someday. I looked at it when I got there. I thought it was going to be a 3-year tour, and it turned into a 5.5-year tour. But it was, first year I was there, it was, you're going to this TNR event. And I said, great. I'm bringing somebody else with me because I'm going to be gone, and they'll be here when I leave, and they'll be your continuity. And then when I leave, they'll start bringing somebody new in with them. And I don't really know where the idea originally came from, but Gunny Harvin, Chad Harvin has taken over a lot of the things that I was doing for TNR stuff for the Cyber Mission Forces. Gunny Zach Boyd has taken over a lot of the technical meetings that I was doing. I mean, the staff NCOs there, I could go on and list them all, give them all a shout out by name. And I probably owe it all to them. And I would, unfortunately, I know I would get through all but one, and I would accidentally leave one guy off, and they'd be like, is that intentional? Did I get spited? And the answer is no. I mean, there is no one there that I served with that I'm like, this is not a guy that's equipped to do this. And Marines say, how'd you get to be where you're at, and how do I get there? And it's the difference is time. It takes time. But the guys that were up there, the Marines that were up there, they're doing all the right things, and all of them have the ability to be future leaders. And I got to spend today with Staff Sergeant Coker, going to ONI with him, driving and talking with him in the car, it's always nice when you can spend time with another Marine talking and just, what are your thoughts on this?
Like we're doing right now.
Exactly. It's great. There's things that the perspectives that you gain, the insight, the knowledge into how other people are thinking, and what their experiences are and what their lens looks like towards the same problem that you may have seen differently. It's invaluable. And I know I don't know if I answered your question for who got me there, but I feel like it really was a matter of I needed to have Marines that I could bring with me. So that was the circumstance for why I started doing that when I did, because I unfortunately have had a lot of kind of random tours that I did not fill what a lot of people consider traditional 51 tours. I get told, how do I not know you? How have I not met you before now? It's not one of those things that you're hiding. Like you talked about earlier tonight when we were talking about some of your tours and how you'd bounced around and been out of the MAGTF for a while, and what it was like trying to come back to that. And it was one of those things. When I took these orders and came to headquarters Marine Corps, it was one of these things like, how's the community going to feel about me coming back in after I haven't been gone for so long?
Right.
And everyone has been super. Everyone has been welcoming me back with open arms. And, we go to these family reunion events that bring us all closer, like the Data Summit. And it just brings us all closer. And no one has said, oh, you left us behind for so long. We have a wide, open-armed, forgiving community that just really, like, welcome back. We're glad you're back, brother. And that's awesome. It just makes you excited to come to the next. When's the next event going to be?
Right.
I don't know if I answered what you were talking about or what you wanted to know, but hopefully there's some goodness in there.
What staff NCOs were instrumental in your professional development?
So I'd have to go back to my time in 3rd Intel Battalion, and I worked for Gunny Crawford, not Master Sergeant Crawford that was our monitor, but he was a 2800 and he became an 06 and he retired as a Master Gunny out of C4. And Staff Sergeant Shelver, who was a 4066. And
Staff Sergeant who?
Shelver.
I don't think I know him.
SKJELVER. So he it's pronounced exactly how it's spelled. Anytime that somebody would call for him, you would get a phone. You answer the phone. They're like, "I'm looking for a staff sergeant." I know who you want. But both I was amazed and just completely blown away by these guys had all the answers to everything. They were always professional. They could captivate an audience by telling stories. I was just like, where did these guys accumulate these skills? You were drawn to them. You wanted to be around them. You wanted to listen to them, and they really kind of formed my basis of staff NCOs have the answers, and they're there for people. And there was never a time that I asked either of them anything, and they ever said, "I'm sorry, I'm busy with something right now." They stopped what they were doing to address the concerns of Marines, and there never has been a time where I have felt like I have been that when I was a Marine or an NCO that I felt I was working for staff NCOs that didn't get it or didn't care. I've always looked at them as being a great group of professionals. And there's again, much like the Marines that I've served with, there's too many great staff NCOs that formed my opinions of it, but it really started from the beginning. I was like, I don't think I'm ever going to make it there to where those guys are at. And it's one of those things that when you look at the guys that came ahead of you and you built icons out of them, and then you're filling the same ranks as them, you're like, am I really doing the same job that they were doing? How would they have done this? It goes back to that whole "am I a fraud" discussion that we were having earlier. Because you just want to make sure that you're upholding the standard, and it's not a written standard. It's the best, and it's how do you ever hit the best? There is no, you try and get a little closer every time. But yeah, too many staff NCOs to name.
So, one of the main themes that we've had, over the course of these interviews has been finding that balance. What do you do to find that balance?
Which balance?
You tell me.
Oh, that's an open-ended thing.
Yeah.
So I'll talk about one of the work. Well, let's talk about work-life balances, because I think that's an important thing that frequently gets overlooked. And I think it's something that some of the best Marines have the worst work-life balances. A lot of Marines end up, the really, really good Marines end up adopting some of the, whether it's the if not me, then who, or, this whole fight depends on me. And they take on just heroic amounts of work. And I think that it normally comes across in having a heavy cost and toll for them, and what it does to their family life and what it does to their physical shape when where the guy constantly fighting at something rather than being like, you know what, this will still be here tomorrow. I'm going to leave and go for a run.
Are you speaking from experience?
No, I was the first one out the door. I've got a 1631 friggin' MOS for Liberty Hound. I was out the door as soon as I could. No, it's I think I found the right balance in that I knew what I could do. But one of those things I was cognizant of was the fact that I've been living on my own for the last 10 years. And so it's one of those things for me to stay an extra hour at the office. It just changes what time I arrive home. I'm not disappointing anyone by coming home an hour later. And I think a lot of Marines say, I'm going to take this one and I'm going to keep running this project. And they don't realize the toll that it takes on their families. And I think frequently we just say, that guy's got it and he's good. And we don't say, hey brother, hey sister, why don't you let me stay late tonight and chip away at this? You need to go home, because we're all in this together. We don't succeed or fail on missions as individuals. We succeed or fail collectively as a group. And so if somebody's just getting burnt out because they've taken ownership of something, which is a great thing, and it's a great characteristic for Marines to have, that they own it, but they don't own it on their own. Like we need to own things together and make sure that people manage their work-life balance. They need hobbies and they need time away from the office to keep them sane and to keep them refreshed and to get them going. Over the long stretch, you get more out of people when they have time to reset and refresh than you do when you're just burning them out.
So what hobbies do you have?
Oh, I actually enjoy PT. I don't enjoy playing team sports. And anyone that's ever served with me knows that team sports for PT are a big no-no for me. I've seen too many injuries from team sports. I enjoy watching team sports. I really enjoy watching hockey. I don't have the size or the skill or the speed to play hockey, but I enjoy watching it. I like reading a lot.
Can you at least skate?
I can skate. I
can't skate. I skate.
It's the same as roller skating or anything else. People say that it's not.
I beg to differ.
Yeah. For me, the mechanics of it remain the same. My daughter has started to tell me that I don't know how to skate because I use the toe pick to stop on figure skates. When you get them as rentals, I don't own figure skates. I mean, if I was going to buy skates, I'd be man enough to buy hockey skates. But no, I've never bought ice skates. But my daughter's super into ice skating, so that's forced me to do more ice skating than I care to do. But I got a solid base from spending time on rollerblades. Or inline skating. I guess I don't even know if rollerblades are still around as a company.
I think I've seen them last time I was at a Academy or sporting goods store.
Yeah.
I think I've seen some rollerblades recently. So what else? What else do you do for hobbies?
Yeah, I do a lot of reading. I like watching a lot of movies.
What do you read?
I mainly read nonfiction. It's become something to go after. I like reading things that I read a sad amount of math books. Not like math textbooks, but stories about how Fermi's Enigma was solved in 92. Stories about applications of E equals MC squared. E equals MC squared. Yeah, that's right. For some reason, I'm all of a sudden I'm thinking that's a rapper. No, that's not a rapper. That's the actual equation. I'm losing my words now. So, But I enjoy reading nonfiction stuff that's not at a real deep level, but that's told at a level that if it's on the New York Times bestseller, I figure it's probably not too advanced to follow and figure out what's going on.
So what kind of movies do you like? Do you enjoy?
Recently it's been all about the superhero movies. I mean, just the products that Marvel Studios is cranking out. Unfortunately, not fast enough for me. I'm still waiting for the next Avengers film because it did not.
Did Thanos do nothing wrong?
So I think that Thanos has. He reminds me of an emo kid that's read a little bit too much of Mathis's theory of brief essay on the principle of population. Populations grow logarithmically and supply grows arithmetically. And I think he said, we're running out of resources. But, maybe rather than killing half the people, maybe we could look at, if we were running the same problem here on Earth and maybe rather than burning fossil fuels for everywhere we go, maybe we actually say, you know what? We're all going to crowd onto these buses and it's going to take longer to get there, but we're going to, if the fuel is being cut off, we can change things. So it's just kind of it's a very short-sighted view of how to make sure that your population doesn't exceed the carrying capacity of a planet. But I think Thanos did some severe miscalculations.
So besides superhero movies, what else do you like?
I really enjoy dystopian tales.
I love dystopia.
I don't know why. I enjoy it.
It's my favorite science fiction genre.
It always starts out as something so promising and so pretty, and then you scratch the surface and you realize that there's a dark underbelly to this. And I was like watching and trying to figure out what's going to take place. It's like watching a mystery that's done in a science fiction manner. So that's another classic one.
What give me some examples of dystopia that you enjoyed.
So to me, the classic will always be A Clockwork Orange. Like that's the pinnacle of dystopian tales.
Okay.
How much control society should have over an individual. Their right to control an individual when they're doing harm to society. And it's one of those things when the story cuts off at 20 chapters or 21 where he's come full circle and following his rehabilitation stint in the hospital, Alex, and this is in the book only, obviously not the movie, but he goes back to a life of crime, and of course Ludwig von Beethoven, and he's gone full circle in that last 21st chapter. And the other great thing about that movie and the book is the slang. Having a unique dialogue to a movie, it adds a level to it. It's always terrific. I always love movies when they do the pop-ups, when you see names pop up on the screen or an explanation of who somebody is, like, bam, thug, enforcer for this gang or whatever. And, that stop
right.
Pop motion, that Guy Ritchie style of filmmaking. I like that. It just adds some visual flair to it.
Should that Guy Ritchie over Quentin Tarantino?
So Quentin Tarantino is probably a better choice for that. It was just the first name that came to mind. It's not the perfect name, but it comes up. Like I love.
If you had to only watch one of the other's movies,
it's Tarantino. That's an easy one. The best that Guy Ritchie ever got was Snatch, and the peak of that is clearly when you're watching the subtitles and you're watching Brad Pitt. And the subtitles just put up a question mark. I mean, that's the best moment in that movie.
So yeah, I do like Guy Ritchie's work. He's a jiu-jitsu player, by the way, black belt, high level, from what I understand. But Tarantino's work, I think is, and I'm sure some people feel like it's overrated, but. I mean, especially when it first came out, like Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs, But even before Reservoir Dogs was True Romance. You remember that one?
It's a hidden gem. I mean, I'm amazed how many people don't know about it. But yeah,
especially when you list the cast out. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's like Val Kilmer.
It's Sam Jackson in for about 18 seconds. It says an inappropriate line and comes to an untimely demise. I won't repeat the line on the podcast, but
you can say it. It's for adults.
It's a great quote. I probably could say it, but then again, my mother would find me and wash my mouth out with soap.
What you motherfuckers talking about?
Christian Slater, Patricia Arquette, Michael Rappaport, Dennis Hopper, James Gandolfini, Gary Oldman, Christopher Walken, Chris Penn, Tom Sizemore, Brad Pitt, Val Kilmer, Samuel L. Jackson. I mean, it's like, that's an insane cast. But as I understand it, he wasn't afforded the opportunity to direct it because he had to sell the script in order to be able to make Reservoir Dogs, which then led to Pulp Fiction. So it was kind of like True Romance was his first hit. But there are some things that I can't wait to be able to introduce my sons to, and True Romance is one of those things. I kind of got around the Game of Thrones situation, at least with my oldest son, the 16-year-old, by kind of playing in the middle with my wife. She's like, "There's no way you're going to let him watch Game of Thrones, the HBO series." And I was like, "Well, what if he reads the books?" And my wife and I have been adamant about the fact that we will never tell the boys, "You can't read that book. That book is inappropriate." If you can pick it up and you can crack the spine and you can get from front to back, then you can handle it, and we can talk about anything that you come across, and that's been one hook to get the boys to read, not just choose your own adventure novels or something along those lines, but to actually get into some literature, and so things like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and Bram Stoker's Dracula and those things, have grabbed the boys' attention from a young age. And, so when Enrique read through Game of Thrones, the series, my wife conceded that he could watch it. But, of course, the youngest son wasn't able to be there. But back to dystopia. One of my favorite works that was introduced to me in college, it was in one of my philosophy courses, it's called The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas. It's written by Ursula K. Le Guin. And it has deliberately both vague and vivid descriptions where the narrator depicts a summer festival in a utopia, the city of Omelas, whose prosperity depends on the perpetual misery of a single child. And that part isn't revealed until close to the very end. It's not a long work. I don't even know how many pages, but I would say it's like less than 50 pages. It's a short story, but the happiness of all is predicated on the suffering of one. And there are some who, upon discovery of that, can't fathom it, and they walk away. As beautiful as the world is, as perfect as it is, the fact that it's founded on that prompts them to consider life elsewhere. But that there is something in there with regard to sacrifice, right? And that child didn't choose to be there. Child was forced to be there. But you and I, and those who wear our cloth, we chose this profession of arms, right? And this distinct, sub-community that has its own unique demands. How do you balance that with maybe a a desire to be there for your daughter more than you are? Because I know for me, there's been some times where I wasn't there for my boys. And I sometimes wonder if I'm doing them a disservice by continuing to push forward in this gun club of ours. You know, and Sam Carter talked about giving it all.
I gave it all, dog.
You know, Kevin Simmons, and if you listen to episode 3, there's a lot of that in there.
Because I was all in. All right, I was that guy. I was all in all the time.
And John Scoggins the same way.
All in on the Marine Corps, up until the point I get a family. And then that needed to be my priority.
They made ultimately the decision was made to walk away from this thing of ours in order to be there for their loved ones. So I know for me, I'm still torn quite a bit. You know, I'm 3 weeks here on the East Coast and away from the wife and kids, and they're picking up my slack. But this is a requirement. How does John balance that out?
Oh, that's a great question. I see what you're talking about you find a way in a natural flow of things and just keep going with them.
What do you mean?
Just the way that question rolled off was a thing of beauty to listen to, from the entire philosophical backdrop to everything else. As you were going through it, I was thinking about the story. Reminds me of you could take the modern or the recent movie release. What is it? I think it's called The Box or something like that, where if you push a button and a random person dies, you'll be given a gift. And all your dreams will come true or something like that. I think that was the basic premise of it. I didn't watch the movie, but I was just thinking through different things and the philosophical ideas that are contained within it, and then walking away. It changed where I was mentally trying to put together a coherent stream of thoughts. So I deal with the things that I miss as I do the best I can do. And in any given moment, you think this is the right decision, and this is the best decision that I can be making for the people that are depending on me. And collectively, like we're all in this together. All the Marines, all of our families, everyone on the planet. We all have finite time that we're going to be here, and finite resources for the things that we can do. And so I try and do the things I can do for my daughter when I can do them for her, and try and do the things for the Marines when I can do the things for the Marines. And you find that if you think you're doing the right thing in the moment, for me, like I feel like this is the right thing to do in this moment. And my situation is different than yours, because when I go home, my daughter's not in the same home as me. And I call her every day, and I'll leave a message, and some days she'll call back, other days she won't.
How old is she?
15. So I got that teenage thing going on.
Yeah, you and me both, brother.
So it's one of those things where, I talked to her for a long time yesterday, and I was like, you want to come back out for another visit? And she's like, oh, yeah. I'm like, there a reason why you haven't returned a call for a week? She's like, I've been busy with stuff. Okay, well, that's okay. Sure. Just say you had something else going on. I mean, I'm all right with that.
But she doesn't want to hurt your feelings. I mean,
no, she doesn't want to hurt my feelings, but I also recognize the fact that most of the time that I call, she's like, I'm currently playing a game right now or something. I'll call him back later. It's unfortunately right now I'm an interruption in her routine. She there was a solid week that she answered the phone every day, and she's like, Dad, I'm talking to my friend Jerry right now. You're calling at the same time. I just got on the phone with Jerry. Why are you calling me right now? Because I'm leaving work and I'm driving home. Wanted to call you and hear about how your day was.
Right.
So it's one of those things. I talk to her and I try and say, hey, this is what I'm doing right now, and these are the options I have. Do you see it differently? Do you feel like I could be doing something else to be there for you? And I think it's one of those things. I think a lot of people end up generating problems by just not saying things, by letting things go unsaid. And it's like, hey, sweetheart, I'm thinking about you right now, and I want to be there, but you're 500 miles away, and I just don't have the ability to be there right now. I think things like that help. I guess the best way that I deal with trying to balance out when I'm not there for somebody, or I feel like I'm letting somebody down, regardless of who it is just take a moment and explain, hey, this is what I want to do. This is what I can do, and this is what I did. Because then illuminating your thoughts on why you've done the things that you do, they don't always make it all right with people, but they make them understand. And right. I think that helps out considerably.
So where does John Stancel get his news?
Mostly?
Yeah.
I mostly get it from other people. I read an embarrassingly low amount of news. I used to read the newspaper routinely. Now I listen to a lot of Elliot in the morning when driving in. Probably not the best news source, but he's a local DC 101 DJ.
Okay.
And there's a lot of news that's on it, and a lot of adult content as well. It's entertaining. It keeps me engaged. It keeps me alert, and keeps me from running my vehicle into somebody else on the road by not dozing off when driving. And then I'll try and listen to some actual legitimate news radio in the afternoon. And I get forwarded a ton of news stories every day. Our public affairs officer sends out articles of interest, and of course they're online. So as I'm reading through those, I am an advertiser's wet dream. I mean, I click on every clickbait thing in the world that's there. I'm like, oh, that looks interesting, and I'm like, oh, that was a trap. I should not. This is not what it was advertised as. The internet and radio are the two primary things that I get my news from. But what I have started to try and explain to my daughter, and to, when Marines will tell me, I read this, and do you believe that or whatever? It's like that. I think we need to start deconstructing how we get our news. I think the most important thing is not how you get your news, but how you interpret your news. I think one of those questions you have to ask.
That's an interesting concept. Could you explain?
Yeah, I'd love to. You read through news and you say that seems to be the opposite of where all the other news media outlets are going, and start asking questions. Who would benefit from this story being true? Is there a reason why other people might or might not be reporting this? And I think we need to look at that, because I think our media is becoming, it's very seldom that you just get a straightforward story about, boy caught in tree after chasing his cat trying to rescue his cat from a tree. Instead it's, cat was trying to escape because family was abusive, and it's what? This story took a weird tilt to it. We don't just get a lot of straightforward reporting anymore. There seems to be an angle on a lot of reporting to convey some type of feeling or message. So I think it's one of those things. Deconstruct that. Why is this story being reported? And who benefits from you following along with the story?
So you're suggesting that we apply a little bit of critical analysis to the information that's being presented to us.
Yeah, that's a much more succinct and better way of saying it than I just said it. But yes,
But I rephrased it in order to kind of highlight the, I guess, the lack thereof in a lot of instances. I stay off the Facebook. as much as possible. I do have a Top Game Podcast Facebook page. Majority of the community is on Facebook in some shape, form, or fashion. And I maintain my own profile primarily as a contacts list, but the majority of my surfing, as it were, is done on Reddit. I like the curation methodology that they employ. I know it's not foolproof, and the game can be gamed, to say the least. But there's something of value for me to be able to look at a poster's profile and determine what their karma score is. Now, it can become inflated, and there's manners in which that can happen. But in certain subreddits, when you get to know some of the personalities and usual suspects, there can be a benefit, even though everybody's got a moniker, a pseudonym. But you get to know the individuals behind that username, and whether or not what they have to say is of value to the overarching conversation or dialogue for that particular community. I love the USMC subreddit. It seems to me to be populated mostly with junior Marines, junior officers, a few staff NCOs you'll see in there. But then you also get the old crusty vets, right? That'll come in and tell the young whippersnappers about what it was like in their time, and you get some pretty interesting sea stories, I think that there's a benefit to having those curated individual communities in the overarching platform, right? Because if you go to the Donald versus the Moeller, you're going to get two completely different perspectives. And the same thing applies if you go to the subreddit, set aside for Manchester United, right? If you're a football fan or a soccer fan, depending on which side of the pond you're from. But for me, the ability to kind of curate your front page and let those topics that you want to know more about kind of trickle to the top. Gets through that white noise, so you can kind of turn up your signal to noise ratio, and the time that you do spend on the internet, you actually enjoy it, right? As opposed to just being overwhelmed with just impertinent information. Or someone else's propaganda that they're trying to feed you or sell you or all that. And I mean, I know there's some of that on Reddit, but it's not at the same level, right? But kind of going back to who's John Stancel? What music do you listen to? What's on your playlist? Well, first off, how do you listen to music? Do you go buy CDs? Still?
No, I've actually adjusted that. I'm slightly more modern, but still probably dinosaur-like compared to most people these days for how do I listen to music. Most of the music I listen to, I listen to a lot of XM radio. I'm stuck on channel 36 alt radio. I listen to that almost all the time that I'm in my car.
No podcasts, huh?
No, I've never listened to a podcast. Although I'm totally equipped to be able to do it because I do listen to everything through iTunes. Then when I'm listening to something else, I no longer have the Discman or the Walkman or anything else. And I never was a Zune guy, but I do have.
Did you ever own an iPod?
Yeah, I had several iPods, and now I just go with now I just use the iPhone. I've been an Apple guy since I got my first Mac in '84. I was screaming fast two.
Apple IIc.
No. Actual Macintosh, the second model Macintosh that came out with the Fat Mac, the monitor built into the computer.
Okay.
2 3.5 floppy drives that I had. No hard drive.
Baller.
Yeah.
Double.
2
3.5 inch.
2
yeah.
3.5 drives. I think they took high density discs.
Right.
Where you could get what 1.4.
No, you can get 2.8.
Well, back then it was 1.44 megs on each disc. I think was what they topped out at back then.
Really? I thought there was a format standard that allowed you to double that to 2.8.
Nah,
I could be wrong.
Not in the 80s that I remember, but then again, I'm getting pretty old and the memory's not what it once was. But talking about music, it was I listened to. I don't subscribe to Apple Music. I still individually pick out the songs that I want and buy them.
Why?
There's something I like about the idea of ownership. I recognize the fact that that's going to change for me here soon. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. It's something where I'm always like, what if I can't connect to the internet? What if I can't? And I recognize you can download a certain amount from there as well. It's just I haven't taken the time to change on it, and it's one of those. I'm aware that I'm going to.
Right.
I just haven't done it yet. It's one of those things that I gotta really read through the licensing agreement. It takes a while to scroll through the 18 pages.
So the EULA is a tough read, but with that being said, what I love about the services, right? Because I've bounced back and forth between Spotify and it was Beats Music first, or Beats One, or I think it was just Beats by Dre, or the subscription that Jimmy Iovine and Dr. Dre had set up before they sold to Apple. And I actually like that. What I like most about that service before Apple picked it up was the way in which it initially engaged with you to get your tastes and to kind of start curating your list. And I did the Pandora thing for quite a while. One of my sergeants and I, we were at Goodfellow for almost the entire 4 years. We had access to Pandora on the Air Force network, and I played out loud. And he and I both had to agree on a song for it to get a thumbs up. If either of us disagreed, it got thumb down. So over the course of the 4 years that we were together, sitting next to each other, in between courses and all of that, we compiled a pretty healthy list, and it was called, that playlist is called For the Homies. It's like mostly like 90s era hip hop, Scarface, Nas, Wu-Tang, Spice One, Eazy-E, MC Ren, all that stuff.
Are those songs or bands?
Those are rappers. But there were other competing platforms at that time. There was RDO and Groove Shark and some of these other ones, but they all kind of fell by the wayside. But later, what I didn't like about Pandora, and Pandora has a great algorithm for picking that next song, and we think you'll like this, thumbs up, thumbs down, keep moving. But there's something to be said about a mixtape. And the playlist is the 2018 version of the mixtape. Not the same, but still similar enough, right?
Absolutely. I think that's the modern day equivalent.
Right. So there's a war right now going on. I guess maybe war is a little bit of hyperbole, but between these services of who can get the best curated lists out there. And that's what I think you're missing on by not being part of that conversation. And so Apple's got some pretty good ones, but so does Spotify. The thing that kills me about Spotify, though, is their random is not fucking random. I don't know. It just seems to me like some software engineer could have figured out how to legitimately randomize a playlist. But and it's not just me on the Spotify subreddit that I still subscribe to. I say about maybe once a week somebody bitches about their lack of a random, even though it's advertised. But Apple does a pretty good job of managing their curating their curators, and kind of tossing you some new suggestions based upon your listening preferences, and there's some benefit to that. And the other thing is I get to follow because I got the family subscription, so I follow my boys. My oldest son has his musical tastes, and then my youngest son has his musical tastes, and then my wife has hers, and I can see what they listen to. One thing that Apple doesn't have that Spotify does, though, which I wish they would incorporate, is collaborative playlists. So you can, like, say if I wanted to make a playlist with you and Sam Carter and a few other guys, we could all start throwing songs on there and kind of add to the same groove, so to speak. But that social interaction, which I know you probably loathe. Maybe that's a strong word.
No, I love social interaction.
But with music, it makes music once again a social function. Another cool aspect. So my youngest son and I were driving to jiu-jitsu class one afternoon after school, and he's like, "Oh, Dad, there's a new Eminem album out, Kamikaze." So we pulled it up, and we're listening to the first song, and Eminem goes on a tear. And I have to admit, I'm grudgingly more an Eminem fan than I used to be. But he goes on a tear, and his delivery technique is at a staccato pace, to say the least. But there's a way in which you can kind of scroll up as you're listening to a track, and it has the lyrics there for you, right? And so Vicente, my youngest, he's like, "Man, we got to rewind that," and he'll listen to it over again, and he's like dissecting the lyrics and the things that I used to do with hip hop music when I was his age. He's doing that. But we're doing it digitally, and we can see what each other's listening to and send each other music and listen to this and listen to that. And he's also he interacts with my younger brother, his uncle, in much the same fashion. They follow each other and they send each other playlists and make suggestions to one another. So it has that almost community feel to it, which is hard to get elsewhere. But I mean, there was a local mom and pop record store in Galveston, where I grew up, right off of 19th Street, called Kobe Cole. And you can go into Kobe Cole, and he had the LPs there for you, and then he had the cassettes, and then later the CDs when that became popular. But most around that time that I was going to Kobe Cole regularly, it was mostly just cassettes. And but he would have he knew his customer base. And he would make those suggestions to you, like, "Hey, so I know you like that Scarface, or you like that Ghetto Boys, or you like this or that, or whatever. You might want to check out this group here, Street Military, out of South Houston. Local underground hip hop artists." And that was kind of like the initiation or the initial conversation that would then populate out to the rest of the community with regard to new music releases. Before there was the digital solution to kind of replace that, and that's what I like about the music subscription services, as opposed to just going buying each individual song. But how do you interact with music other than just listening to it while you're running or in the car?
So I've been trying to put together some of the perfect playlists for certain things. Football just kicked off, and I feel like everywhere I look, people are just super excited about football season. Not a football fan.
Me either.
Yeah. So I was trying to come up with a way to overcome that. Being a huge hockey fan, I said, you know what, I'm gonna come up with a playlist of all the hockey goal songs that are out there for the 31 teams in the NHL.
The hockey goal songs.
Hockey goal songs. So every team, every team that I'm gonna talk about this like everyone has a fascinating interest in hockey. Every hockey team has a unique goal horn that goes off following them scoring a goal in a song. And the goal horn stuff dates back to Bill Wirtz in Chicago. He liked the sound that the horn on his yacht made, and that's actually where it came from. And I want to say it was mid-70s, 71, 74, sometime in the 70s that he liked the sound of the horn, so they brought in the no-kidding horn from a yacht and installed it in then Chicago Stadium, which has unfortunately gone the way of the dodo and it's been replaced by the United Center, and every stadium now is owned by somebody that they've got their name emblazoned on it. And following that, they have a goal song. There's frustratingly a handful of teams in the league that I can't find copies of their song. St. Louis Blues, they no kidding still use the organ that they have in the stadium to play. Not when the Saints go marching in, but when the Blues go marching in. I can't find a version of that anywhere to put onto a playlist. The Rangers have their own home-cooked goal song. I can't get that. Detroit has Hey Hey Hockey Town, but they recently asked Kid Rock to redo it, and I can't find a version of Kid Rock singing Hey Hey Hockey Town. And the Dallas Stars with Pantera's Puck Off. I can't get a copy. I can't get a copy of any of those four.
So while you were talking, I just searched up on Apple Music hockey goal songs.
Yep.
So a guy, user by the name of Angus England, updated 2 weeks ago his shared playlist, and I don't think it's all inclusive, but here are some of the tracks, and you can tell me if you recognize the team that plays it.
Okay.
Chelsea Dagger,
Chicago Blackhawks
by the Fratellis. Righteous Smoke.
I don't know who. It's the Calgary Flames.
Monster Truck is the name of
the artist.
Yeah. Song 2 by Blur.
So that's I don't know who's currently still using it. It was used by the Carolina Hurricanes and the Florida Panthers. They've both moved on from it. I'm not sure who's still using it right now. I know that there's a team currently using it. I can't tell you who.
Welcome to the Jungle by Guns N' Roses.
It's got to be the Vegas Golden Knights.
I am not even kidding when I say that you're frightening me right now. Seven Nation Army, the White Stripes.
I don't know if that's... How old is this playlist?
It was updated 2 days ago.
Okay.
Vicente, my youngest, loves the White Stripes. It's like he'll go between Eminem to the Beastie Boys to White Stripes.
So
he's an eclectic 12-year-old.
That's one that I don't know.
AC/DC, for those about to rock.
Columbus Blue Jackets, along with a cannon that scares the bejesus out of everyone in that crowd.
The Whip by Loxley.
Ooh, so it's used by a whole bunch of teams for part of their stuff. I mean, that's another one of those just generic songs. I'm not sure if anyone uses it entirely for their thing, but you're reading off of something that I'm not sure what you're...
The San Jose Sharks use it as a second part of their goal song, as well as the Columbus Blue Jackets. This may be old, though. Howling for You by the Black Keys.
Phoenix Coyotes. See, I mean, this actually, that howling and the Yotes, I mean, that goes together. That works.
Right, yeah. With a marketing trick like the Calgary Flames, the Arizona Phoenix Coyotes picked a song that relates to the franchise name. Not only are the Black Keys a great musical group, the song starts off with the drum beat much like Rock and Roll Part 2 that grabs fans' attention. Pennywise, Bro Hymn.
Oh, Southern California, Anaheim Ducks. I mean, it has a great, the entire song it's not a great listen, but it has one of the best sing-alongs that punk music has produced over the last 20 years.
Are you a punk fan?
I grew up on a lot of punk music. I've been to more punk shows than anything else. I I've had Elmer's glue a time or two in my hair to make a mohawk. It's
What?
It's non-toxic. Yeah, you can totally rock a mohawk with Elmer's glue.
Could I find pictures of this?
You could find it in probably some of my mother's old scrapbooks. They're not online, and they're carefully guarded on a wicker bookcase that she has in her sunroom that are probably slowly being yellowed by the sun pouring into that room.
Everybody's a gangster till AM starts on the front line, right? So I never got into punk. But I can understand the allure.
So there's an appeal to it. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few different types of punk that you have. You have the very raw punk sounds that you get from Minor Threat and Ian MacKaye with his strained out vocals, just absolute rage and disgust at the system. And then you have pop punk and guys putting their twangy, kind of almost sounds snotty at the end of everything, and it's like, why do you have to sing with a? I don't even know how the heck they do the voice stuff, but yeah, to me, punk music is about. There's different. Some punk is about. It's all about, in general, being dissatisfied with the way things are, and some of it's just anger, and I'm in a rage about it, and other things are like the things are not where they need to be, and we need to kind of make it better.
Fuck you! I won't do what you tell me.
So it's got a punk attitude, but not a punk sound.
Right.
So
but that's
Rage Against the Machine.
That's what I mean, and that kind of allure. And so when I first started getting exposed to punk and I could probably list maybe a few punk bands if I was forced to at gunpoint. The Ramones.
Yeah.
Right. It reminds me of gangster rap in a lot of ways, but in the sentiment, not necessarily the delivery or the application of that angst or rage or fervor.
And they both become incredibly popular and best-selling and chart toppers when the economy's in the tank and people are in a bad mood. You're not selling the poppy fluffy stuff at those times. It's when you only see those sales spike when the economy is soaring.
So I see Pitbull, Don't Stop the Party, but it doesn't say what teams are using that. Slapshot. New York Rangers. Yeah, that's interesting. I guess that's something about the hockey culture that I never would have known had you not brought it up.
Yeah,
brought it to my attention.
I really like the Canadian song. Theirs is another homemade one, and there's nothing like French rappers to really kind of throw you for something unexpected. But theirs is almost done to a militaristic marching band sound, and the fact that it's in French just adds another level of infuriation to it. I mean, goal songs are really, we just got one, and now we're gonna rub it in your face that we just got one. And there's something about singing at people in French that just seems to really infuriate them. Extra little bits.
So I did recently, semi-recently, watch a documentary on the enforcers, right? In the gladiatorial aspect of hockey, and how those pugilists prepare themselves to go into harm's way. I watched the movie Goon when it first came out. I thought that was a great movie.
That's terrific. It is a phenomenal movie. After I watched that, I had a moment when I was talking to Nate Van Der Eyden about the film, and I said, he said to me something to the effect of, I don't know if I could be friends with somebody if they didn't like that movie.
Yeah, a much better role for that actor than Stifler. But the interviews with those guys, and I think it was a Netflix documentary, really kind of set the tone for what it takes to assume that role on a team. But it does speak to a level of, I guess, bloodlust that we still have, kind of just simmering beneath the surface. And one of the key points from the movie was that those enforcers and their willingness to just pound somebody's face in for breaking decorum, right? You have guys like the Gretzkys and others that are athletes and bring a level of technical expertise and finesse to the game that is almost transcendent, right?
Right.
But then you have these other guys that serve to protect them. And the minute somebody starts getting a little froggy, they've got to contend with the fact that there's a bigger dude that's going to grab them and just start drilling into their cranium, and it puts everybody back into the frame of mind where they have to remember that it's just a game, and everybody has to go home safely. And if you're not going to allow others to do that, then they're not going to allow you to do it either. And that part that part about the game I can appreciate, primarily because I had some goons looking out for me when I was young, and they were like brothers to me, and it became almost like a symbiotic relationship with some of these guys, and I'm still in touch with some of them, the ones that are still alive, still in touch with them today. There's a few that are no longer with us, but we're like brothers. And one of the great things about this gun club is that I've come across individuals like that have been like brothers to me. Either I became in a twist of circumstances, I became the enforcer that protected them, or vice versa. And we the Marine Corps is a very tribalistic community, and there's some benefit to that. But one of the things that I like about our community is that we've got these heavyweights, and not all of them physically heavyweight, but mental giants as well. And we learn so much from one another in these close, intimate interactions. And perfect example. When I first met Sean Nicol, I couldn't stand him. He was aggressive, he was abrasive, and I kind of smelled a little bit of a bully on him until I got to know him and understood why he was so passionate about what he was saying. And even though I didn't agree with his approach, I didn't have to. He was gonna do Sean, and you either you take it or leave it. Sam Carter, different type of approach. Kevin Simmons, another animal, right? Different approach. John Scoggins, different kind of animal. But from each of those guys and others like them, I've learned something along the way. And like today, I had someone tell me that 3-meth was a paper meth. Man, I had to. I held my tongue to a certain extent, but also had to stand my ground. I was like, "You're not gonna talk to me like that."
No, hey.
I mean, just out of virtue of the fact that that's my unit, right?
You got to defend it,
right?
Yeah. It's there's a lot of different tribes, and no one's in a shat on your unit.
Even if it's MARFORCYBER, right?
Yeah, and they do some terrific, amazing things. Yeah, right. And it's one of those things like, sure, every unit has things that aggravate people, but that's your unit. You're their representative, and what they do is going to reflect back on you. You're going to defend that and own it. And you don't have to like everything that's done, but that's yours, and own it. Take it on and defend it. Don't just wash over it or dismantle it. Yeah, it's one of those things. Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time since I've been under 3MEF's flag, but I spent a long time on that same Camp Courtney parking lot that you probably spend way too much time on for a post in relief of Sergeant's Major back in 2000, 2001. I was on the color guard, and we were out there for a long time. And there's an impressive number of battle streamers that are on that. And sure, may not have as many as 1MEF or 2MEF, but they've made significant contributions to Marine Corps history. You don't shat on that for anything.
Right.
Whatever unit you're with, you have to defend it. You defend your rock field. You defend, and one of the things that tribalism is a great thing and a bad thing at the same point in time. There's a lot of good that comes of it. You instantly form bonds for it. There's also a lot of unnecessary rivalry and pissing matches that result from it. And I think institutionally, we need to figure out how the heck to take the best aspects of it and get rid of the questionable ones from it, because it's one of these things where there's something wrong with when you watch Marines treating one another worse than you watch the general public treating them. Is over the last 15 years, it's become incredibly common to get a thank you for your service, and we appreciate what you're doing, and thank you for. And meanwhile, we as Marines treat other Marines like dirt because we're like, F you, buddy. You're with this group, or you did this, or you said this, or you vote. Well, we've got to get past that as an institution.
So let me ask you then. Now that you're part of DCI, how do you resolve which tribe you're part of now?
I'm a part of the DCI tribe. I don't have to resolve it. I think what just took place with the stand up of DCI is we just took a couple of communities that have for a long time had not a cooperative view, but a competitive view between and this is my feeling, is that there's been a level of competition, not necessarily cooperation. It hasn't been conflict or combat or anything like that. But we just said, guess what? You guys are all together now. It's you watch two kids that were fighting, and their parents just got married, and and we're now in that. And it's one of those things where we're part of something bigger than we were before, and that's the new tribe that you have. And I think one of the biggest challenges and struggles that we're going to see within DCI is how long people are going to hold on to their individual tribes. I think the faster that we can drop that, the more productive we're going to be when we recognize and say, we're part of doing something more now. And let's come together. Because the sooner we get over any glorified pissing matches or beefs that we have, the better off we're going to be. It's one of those things. I heard a lot of comments about, well, comm community there was a time that I didn't get the level of service from them that I thought I deserved, or that I thought I should get from them. Okay, great. There's times that all of us have let somebody down as an individual or as a unit, that we didn't take care of something in the time frame that it was, and we've got to let go of some of those old beefs, because no good comes from holding grudges. And so I'm part of the DCI tribe right now, and it's one of those things. I spent a long time waving the cyber flag, and I've got a couple of secondary MOSs or necessary MOSs or additional MOSs, whatever the term of the day is for it, that have cyberspace in the title of it, and I will wave the cyberspace flag and look out for the Marines that are in cyber. We're collectively, it's a large group that we can do a lot of good for the Corps, for the institution, for the nation, or we can do a lot of infighting and pissing and moaning and waving our small tribe flags rather than, it's like we have a bunch of guidons now. And it's like we got a set of colors up front that we need to unite behind.
Right. So on that, why didn't you become a 1700?
That's a series of different things on that. Right now there are no 1700s. But
Say it again?
Right now there are no 1700s. No one holds that MOS. It'll come online in October. And my original MOS will change as well for the first time since I've been in, when I become a 2659 rather than being a 2651. But I didn't apply to be I did not apply to be a cyber Marine for a combination of reasons. For one thing, it when I was asked about it at first, it was, are you going to become a cyber Marine? The OC field and the MOSs at the time had not been fleshed out to a finite level, and I said I don't know everything that it entails. It was, to me, when I was being asked if I was going to do it, that's something I'm interested in, and it's still something I'm interested in, what the OC field has. But the reason why I ended up not applying for lateral move was as a 2651, I found that I had orders to go to DCI, and it was something that was exciting. It was something that I've worked, and I spent 5.5 years at cyber, and I was being offered an opportunity to do something different and to try and kind of look at these different communities under DCI in the information environment enterprise, and say, I'd like to go there. And I'd like to say, I spent time working in cyber, I spent time working in Intel, and I want to be able to extend an olive branch and try and bring these communities together rather than having them work separate and apart. And I was super excited about the possibility of it. And around the same time, I was told, if you lat move, you won't go to DCI. And I was offered a series of different choices and assignments, and I said the assignment that I really want is this one. And do I think that I'd be doing anything different as a 1700 that I am as a 2600 right now? Probably not at the rank that I presently hold. My role would be a lot of writing papers, presenting opinions, talking to people, and it wouldn't really change. It was the assignment that would have changed, and I was super excited about the assignment, and that was what went into my calculation for the decision not to apply to LatMove.
Do you think there would have been a point in time in your career where you would have made the decision to move if it would have just been maybe not necessarily this assignment at DCI, maybe as a mass sergeant or as a gunny, you would have crossed over?
It's distinctly possible. A large number of Marines have asked me about what I think they should do, and I never give a Marine a straight answer about this is what you should do.
Right.
Normally, my first response will be to ask them a series of questions in turn and be like, I get asked, hey, should I lat move to become a cyber Marine? Do you want to be a cyber Marine? Is that what you want? And when the response comes back, well, I want to stay where I'm currently at, or I want to move here, or I want to make more money, or that's not the reason why you should make the decision to lat move. And so I think if it was something where, if there are plenty of times that I could have seen myself applying to lat move, I have applied to lat move several times, and I've been politely declined every time that I've tried to lat move. And so a lot of it just comes down to being able to do, and there's so many different factors in place. But I think that lat moves apply for if you want to do a different role. It's not, to me, a lat move is not the tool to change duty assignments or something else. But if a lot of Marines look at a lat move as a means to an end. It's a way to have a duty station change, or to have some stabilization is viewed as a bad word, but some stability in their home life. And again, that may be a reason for somebody, and depending on their circumstances, to make that decision. And for each Marine, they're going to know what the right decision for them is, and only that Marine is going to know the right decision for them. And I think there's some skepticism that a lot of Marines have about this, because it's so new and it came online so quick. But I think for the Marine Corps, the cyber act field is going to be a really great thing, because we have a professional force that we are recognizing, and in time we are going to have the appropriate training and professionalization to make a career of doing that. And I think it'll be a great thing for the Marine Corps. I think short term, there's going to be a lot of pain as new training comes online, like anything else new.
Right.
But the associated pain and unforeseen second and third order effects of making a decision as quickly as the Marine Corps made the decision to stand at the SOC field, there's going to be complications in that. That doesn't make it a bad thing.
So, playing devil's advocate, I don't think there should be a 1,700 community in the Marine Corps. I think we need a cyber force, not a cyber rock field. Change my view.
Well, so it's not your view I need to change. I mean, that's something that's going to be decided way over us. I mean, I guess
But do you think that as an alternative COA would is where we're headed, or that's not even feasible? So,
what's possible or feasible is one of those, the question about cyber forces, question about space forces. There's been obviously a large accompanying number of stories, memes, all types of things that have popped up about both the cyber force and a space force. And the U.S. government will decide what they need. At the time that the decision was made to make a cyber act field for the Marine Corps, we were the only service that did not presently have a cyber field.
Adeptus Astartes. I'll explain that later. Go ahead.
Okay. And so it's something where we have taken two distinct different MOSs on the enlisted side, one from the 2600 act field and one from the 06 act field, and put them together. And my hope is that we're going to find a way to combine the skills from these, because I truly believe that understanding how to exploit opportunities helps you learn how to defend against those opportunities, and vice versa. And I really would like to see a solid blending of those two different MOSs into one community, because I think it will strengthen those. I think it'll strengthen both of them. If there's going to be some type of cyber force at play, I think it's one of those things where right now we gone are the days where we're going to act independently as forces, and there's a lot of joint things that take place within cyber presently, and whether that'll result in another service being established or not is something that I don't want to guess about. I don't want to think of. I don't want to take the time to try and guess. I would rather take the time trying to figure out lotto numbers that are going to win me millions of dollars and help me to retire for good when the Marine Corps is done with me.
So I said Adeptus Astartes. It's the term for the Space Marines in the Warhammer 40K universe. I got deep into that, not from a collecting standpoint, although I do own a few plastic figurine armies from that war game hobby. But primarily it was because I was looking at how they fleshed out their combat resolution schema in order to apply it towards a turn-based strategy game that I was working with some airmen to develop for the Marines. But yeah, it's almost it's almost not necessarily identical, but it reminds me a lot of some of the sidebar conversations we had with regard to the 51s, the 52s, and the 53s that are coming, that aren't here yet. Which is, how do we retain them? How do we keep them in? What do we say to these Marines, especially now that the retirement plan has changed, and at the end of 5 years they can get out. They may already have enough credits under their belt to walk right in, and certifications, right? SEC Plus, CISA, you name it, and walk right into a job and demand a six-figure salary, or just go to school with their post 9/11 GI Bill, live off sergeant's BAH, and complete their bachelor's, maybe even their master's, and go right to the commercial sector, the private sector. What do we say to those Marines, John? What do we tell them in order to convince them that it's worth their time and ours to stick around, to stay green?
So you retain Marines because they want to stay Marines. But you talked about we're never going to compete financially with other opportunities that are available. We have to look at the things that we have to look at what we can present to Marines. And for some Marines, staying Marine is enough. For others, it's not. There's certain things that we can offer, though. There are unique challenges and things that Marines are going to be allowed to work on that the private sector never is going to. You're going to be doing work that matters to everyone in this country for keeping them safe. You're going to be able to do things in certain cases that if you're doing outside of government service are going to land you in jail or prison or worse. And we have to look at that at some of those opportunities. And we have to. Retaining Marines starts with, I think, finding ways to make Marines really, really enjoy and appreciate what they have. Because no one's getting rich quick in the Marine Corps. But I think retaining Marines starts with how we start treating Marines on day one.
I like that.
And I think it's one of those things where, in the Marine Corps, you're never gonna be homeless. You're never gonna go hungry. You're never gonna not receive the medical care that you need. So your basic needs are gonna be met. How are we meeting the emotional needs and the other the social needs that other Marines have? And institutionally, I think a lot of the Marines that stay are Marines that were just treated well, and a lot of the Marines that go are Marines that were not treated well or taken care of. Anytime that you hear a response to why are you treating the Marines like that? Why are you making them do that? But that's how it was for me. Did you like it then? No,
right.
Well, but it happened to me, so I'm doing it to them. Well, that's not a good reason. We should be seeking ways to constantly improve things. Behind every Marine, there's a person, and we laugh and joke, and we'll from time to time there will be some comments and some humor that's made that may not be completely appropriate, but you have to know when you cross a line with each individual with what you say or what you do. Everyone has things that like, this is sacred to me. We were having the discussion earlier when we were working on the precursor to the technical design meeting, and afterwards, after the force of nature blew through the room and blew up people, that somebody made the comment about
the force of nature.
Questioning my parenting techniques is an off-limit topic for me. for talking about
She
taking.
who shall not be named.
Well, I also recognize that not everyone's going to understand this, but yeah, it was, yeah, she who shall not be named. Yeah, it was one of those comments that was made afterwards about I took legitimate offense over my parenting techniques being questioned, that I'd tell my kid to deal with being hungry, should have eaten more at breakfast, and I'm not pulling over at McDonald's now. And somebody took legit offense at that. And no offense was, I think, meant by it, but it was one of those things where I think culturally, as the Marine Corps, we said, well, that person just needs to get over that. Like they may have a very strong reason for feeling that way. And rather than saying you just need to get over that and grow tougher skin, we need to have conversations with one another about, hey, I didn't mean to offend you by that. Share with me what's taking place that has you feeling this way, to where I can understand that.
I mean, we're on a timeline. We're running a tight schedule. Maybe the comment was inappropriate, but so what? So we run the risk of offending?
I think it's one of those things where if you don't have the time to apologize or hear where somebody's coming from, then you better err on the side of 100% professionalism and not joking around. Keep it. If you can't take the time to apologize for somebody, then you don't have the time to tell the inappropriate joke.
Fair enough.
Or possibly inappropriate joke. Just very, hey, good morning. How are you today? But nobody wants that totally robotic thing.
Right.
But, I think if you don't have time in the moment, you find time later. You got to say, hey, what's going on? I think one of the other things about taking care of Marines is one of those things for at John Scoggins' retirement lately. The question was really. I
wish I could have been there. How was it?
It was great. It was another family reunion event. But he said one of those things that the John Scoggins I knew in A school and the John Scoggins that I then knew as an instructor was not the same guy that I watched retire. And it was what he said, and it was one of those things I've long felt for a while, but he verbalized it better than I've ever verbalized it before. And it was, lead Marines with compassion. He was explaining a time that he thought he was going to get in trouble as a master and really, really get in the nook and cranny from a master gunny. And rather than just blowing him up, he pulled him aside and said, hey, what's going on? Are you doing all right? Because he was running late and he expected he was just going to get steamrolled for it because it was in a course. And his first question was, are you doing all right? And he's like, hey, things happen. You're running late today. That's life. Try and not run late tomorrow. It blew him away, and it changed him. He was like, his first question was if I was all right, not why are you coming in here late?
Right.
And our approach to how we deal with Marines has a huge impact to how they respond to what we're asking. And I think we can all take a moment and look at that. Yeah, it's one of those, we don't, what does it cost to thank somebody? It doesn't cost a thing, but it makes a world of difference to somebody who's given up their time, who effectively said, hey, U.S. government, hey, Marine Corps, you have my services, you have my time for a set amount of it. Let's still take care of that person that has given up a lot of their freedom. And it's just starts with looking at the person first.
So that point echoes something that Sergeant Major George Garcia, who's a former 2671, 71 Arabic linguist, who went the 89-99 route, much to my displeasure, in that we have an obligation to keep the promise. That when that young Marine decided to walk this path alongside us, he's still someone's child. He's still someone else's loved one on the outside, and there was a promise made to that young individual that we would, and his family, by extension, that we take care of him, that we would look out for him, and that we would return him back to society better than which we found him. And so, as particularly as staff and COs, we have an obligation to keep that promise. And that point has resonated, and I've gotten a lot of feedback about that portion of the conversation that we recorded in areas where I didn't expect it to come from. So, and part of the kindler, gentler Marine Corps that seems to be I guess denigrated sometimes by the old guard, brings to mind, for me as a father, would I want my sons to join the Corps? And for my oldest, before this summer, I would have said he'd never do it. But just recently, he started talking to me about the Naval Academy in West Point. And that surprised the shit out of me. So much so that when he said it, I had to do everything I could to not, betray my thoughts with my facial expressions. And I just kind of my wife just kind of looked at me like, just ignore it, just ignore it, just ignore it. and I did. But maybe with my youngest, I could see him doing it, but then there's certain aspects of his personality and his character that lead me to believe that he would never do it. But I mean, let's be fair. This is a male-dominant society, and them being males, the challenges presented to them would be different than would, say, for example, your daughter. Would you allow your daughter to join the Marine Corps?
So,
or would you recommend it or encourage it?
So I've had the conversation with her before, because she's asked me about it. And she said, "Dad, what would you think if I told you I wanted to join the Marine Corps?" And years ago, I said, "No, that's a terrible decision. Why would you do that?" I wouldn't recommend that you do that. And there have obviously, the Marine Corps has had its share of issues with gender inequality and a lot of gender discrimination. And then I think to myself, institutionally, we've had to address and look at a lot of really dark, terrible things that we institutionally have done with regards to gender inequality and gender discrimination. And if my daughter, knowing all these things and being aware of them because of the exposure that she has from hearing me express my displeasure in seeing these things, if she says, at the end of it, I recognize it's not necessarily the best environment, but I want to go and I want to be part of the solution. I'm not going to say no to that. It's one of those things where I mean
that's in line with our core values, right? Having the courage and the commitment to be able to take something like that on.
And you're not wrong. You're completely correct in saying that. And so I wouldn't be able to say no. If you want to try and change things and make things better, who am I to say no? And it's one of those things where I just the last team I was on, we were compiling our statistics for to do a command climate survey. It was the comment was made about we are whiter than a pair of khaki cargo shorts, and it was predominantly a white male organization, and it's one of those things where it was one of those things I was my daughter thought it was the coolest thing in the world. She's like, "Dad, it's awesome that you've got a woman boss. That is the coolest thing ever." And I was like, and it is cool. And it's awesome. It's awesome the fact that my teenage daughter, the most exciting thing for her about my job and what I'm doing is she's like, "It's awesome that you work for a woman, Dad." I'm like, that is pretty awesome. I mean, it's a clear indication of it.
She's a 3-star general.
Yeah, it's a huge, awesome thing that that's where the Marine Corps culturally is at. It is phenomenal, and the fact that my daughter, who is just irreverent to anything, it got super pumped up about that. I was like, there is something that's really awesome about this. She's like, when are you having work events? When do you have a work event that I can come to that I can say hi? And I'm like,
she wants to meet her.
I'm like, I'll let you know, sweetheart. And so I've got to find a time that she's in that we've got a work event. So originally, I mean, years ago, I told my daughter no, and it would be one of those things where I think if today she said I want to join, I said let's sit down and talk about why you want to join, rather than just having a hard and fast I don't recommend that.
Right.
Yeah. No.
So recently, my youngest sister, half sister on my mom's side, she asked me about service in the Marine Corps and what the environment was like for women, particularly as it pertains to sexual assault, sexual harassment, misogyny, sexual discrimination. I had to explain to her, because, it's my baby sister. I had to explain to her the truth as I saw it. And, but I didn't want her to just take my perspective as gospel. I wanted her to get a separate opinion, and I put her in touch with Master Guns Jennifer Scott, who's working as a EO advisor now outside of the OC field, but she's headed back quickly to kind of give her a different perspective. And the conversation took place over instant messenger, but the information that she gave to Nina was surprising to me. It was disconcerting. It was right on the heels of the anniversary of women in the Marine Corps, and the conversation centered around the amount of vitriol on social media associated with some of those posts that were on Twitter, that were on Facebook, that were on Instagram, and how ugly that it can get. And I don't know if that swayed Nina one way or the other. We haven't really discussed it, and I plan to. But you're right in that it's going to take resolve in order to fix it. But for me, I had to, and I had this conversation with Ann Sagabill and Sarah Clark recently. At the end of that whole, and I don't think we're at the end of it, but at the in the discovery phase of the whole Marines United thing, I had to kind of do an assessment. At any point in time in my career, did I contribute to this? And honestly, I would say that there were some instances where I did not stand up when I should have. I was quiet. And I can throw 100 excuses out as to why I didn't. But it all boils down to I just didn't have the courage at the time. Maybe in that instant, in that moment, where I just accepted it is that's just how things are. But as a master sergeant, you don't have that luxury any longer. And whenever I see Marines starting to stray from that straight and narrow path, I make it a point to address it very forcefully within my sphere of influence, and then to remind them that hey, there are sisters. This is a family, and hopefully that the next generation, the Marines that are around me, they learn that and they see that and they replicate that. They carry that forward, because it's an ugly part of our service culture that I think is it's starting to turn, but not fast enough. And I honestly have to say that during the E8 seminar that I attended right after pinning on, that was one of the questions that I asked the panel that they brought up of leaders was, what's our role in getting this right? And unfortunately, there were some in the crowd that they were just completely oblivious to the problem. They don't see it, and that bothers me. That bothers me. But let me ask you, are you going to listen to this episode?
I'm going to try and listen to all these episodes. As a matter of fact, I got asked by I called somebody, and I won't use his name, won't throw him out there. And I said, hey, just to let you know, I'm because I thought he was somebody that had been browbeating me about this. He's like, wait, there's a podcast? And I said, yeah, you didn't know? He's like, you got to send me the link for it. So first of all, I've got to get that. And then I need to go and do that. I got plenty of time to I'm not planning on dying anytime soon, so I figure right. I can do some listening to something other than listening to shock Jack DJs in the morning to keep me entertained on the road. But yeah, I'm planning on listening to it. Of course, this may be the hardest one to listen to, because when you hear yourself recorded, you're like, that's what I sound like? And it's like the listening to yourself on the answering machine for the first time. You're like, that's how I sound? So this may be the hardest one to listen to, but I plan to listen to it.
Who are you going to forward it to?
Forward it to somebody that asked for it. So
who says that?
It's irrelevant.
Okay.
I mean, it's irrelevant to this. So, yeah, I'm sure that all of a sudden it'll be getting forwarded out. I've got a lot of Marines that I've served with they are room chiefs in their own right. They're like, John did a podcast. Here you go. We got it'll make its way around without me having to send anything.
So let's take a trip on the Top Game time machine. Say I can bend time and space, and I fold it just so that we hit the location where you are as a sergeant on deployment somewhere. And Master Guns walks up to Sergeant Stancel and you got 2 hours. What do you tell him?
Oh. That's a tricky one. What I'd tell him is first of all, for one thing, one of the things that I wish I had done is I wish I had taken time to write more. I thought about when I was writing a bunch of papers in senior enlisted PME, I thought to myself, if only why am I writing these papers now? Why didn't I write my thoughts during my first enlistment on what I thought it meant to be a leader, on what I thought core values were? And why didn't I write them again during my second enlistment? And why didn't I look at how the heck my thoughts have changed, have evolved, have progressed over time?
Right.
So I'd probably tell myself to capture that stuff. I'd probably take the time to tell myself, watch out for certain people along the way that, or that you're not going to like these encounters that you're going to have with these people. So just be forewarned. Forewarned is forearmed. Although I tell it to myself. I try to shy away from when Marines ask me, well, what about this guy? I'd be like, I don't want to taint your opinion. Come up with your own opinion. The other thing is like me now ran into sergeant me, We're like, this guy he's not very good. He's not the guy that you, I mean, I was immature compared to how I am now. There were a lot of things that I did then that I have to own because I did them, but I wish I hadn't done now. As you get a little older, a little wiser, you realize that's not the way to be. It's not the way to speak, not the way to be, not the way to think. But one of the big reasons why I never try to tell Marines about what I think about somebody is they'll be like, have you ever ran into this guy? And I'm like, yeah. What did you think? They're like, I was in A school with him.
Right.
The 19-year-old guy that's that may have been trying to get liquor underage is not the same guy that
allegedly
that's 40 now that's married 3 kids and on his 3rd minivan. That's a totally different dude. So my opinion of what he was like is nothing like what that individual is like now. I don't want to share an opinion. And the other thing is everyone's got their own unique lens. Look at your own thing.
Definitely.
And I'd tell Sergeant me, get your McMap black belt now. Spend time in the gym because when you're in your 30s and you're getting thrown down on the ground, it's going to hurt a heck of a lot more than it does now. So prepare your body now as much as you can.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no issues. Prepare yourself as best you can now because it'll make it easier in the long run. You'll feel a lot better. You'll be able to wake up and not have to work the kinks out trying to get out of bed. Oh.
So one last piece to bring us home.
Sure. Let's do it. We're on the home stretch now, huh?
Yeah. We're sitting about 2.5 hours.
Okay. So when you're done editing it down, it comes out to how long?
It actually usually expands it out a little bit more because I add like some admin notes and I've gotten a little fancy and started including like commercials and at the very beginning there's a disclaimer. I come up with a funny, or not funny, but some way to kind of bring you in and set the stage. And call it, rank and maybe your billet. If there's a nickname that you're known by, is there a nickname you're known by?
I've been known by a number of different nicknames. None of them have ever really stuck, and I've never had a nickname last over more than one assignment. I was sitting in this last data summit. I was like, when every time it was, if you haven't met him, I'm like, you can't use that name. You cannot use that name. Like there's somebody famous in the Marine Corps that already has that nickname. Stop doing that because it's going to create major problems. Right. Because Sam Carter keeps calling me by the nickname that a general officer has. I'm like, that's going to be bad because somebody's going to be if that catches on.
Which one?
General Adams.
Yeah, but what's the nickname?
Rain Man.
Rain Man.
I'm like if people are saying that and they're referring to me, he is way better known than I'm ever going to be. So it's one of those things. That's a really ballsy thing to say to a general officer. Like, what are you talking about? That's John. No, that's not. Not to the Marine Corps. It's not. So
from the Commandant's 2017 message to the force. Bullet 6, he says, have more fun as Marines because it is a privilege to be part of this elite warfighting organization. Along with always striving to be better, we should strive to have more fun together, build and strengthen the bonds of camaraderie we share as Marines. Resolve to spend more time socializing with each other, share your stories, grow with each other, and build friendships that will last a lifetime. Approach this new year with a renewed sense of adventure. Get out and explore the world with your fellow Marines. Do things you've always wanted to do. Learn to surf, master another language, play an instrument, run an adventure race, etc. Don't just sit on your backside in the barracks or at home. Enjoy the privileges and freedoms that you've sworn to defend. When you're in the field training, attack that too. Training is hard and sometimes miserable as it should be. Cheerfulness and a positive attitude in the face of adversity are traits we all need to develop. Embrace the suck and laugh about it with your fellow Marines. The hardships that we suffer together build cohesion. They will be the moments we remember the most after we hang up the uniform. Hey, brother, I want to tell you that it was a pleasure working with you this past week, and in previous groups that we've worked together in. But I don't think I really got to know you until we sat down and started recording this. And I can honestly say it's an honor to be in uniform together with you. And I just hope that you stay in contact. We don't lose touch, and we continue this friendship.
Absolutely.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate it greatly, Sammy.
And with that, we're out.